Cooperative Extension provides practical information designed to improve the quality of life for local residents. Consumer Market Basket is produced by Cooperative Extension in partnership with Penn State and county governments in Lehigh and Northampton counties.
Good evening and welcome to January's edition of Consumer Market Basket. I'm Rob Girth.
And I'm Rebecca Escott, and we're your hosts for the monthly program that looks out for you.
We're here to help you do your homework about the products and services we all need every day, and to keep you informed about the many educational services offered by Cooperative Extension in Lehigh and Northampton counties.
Tonight, we're going to start off the new year with all sorts of information to make your life easier. Dwayne Stevenson is going to educate us on something a lot of us have been putting off, living wills. Eric Verodi is going to show us some of the differences between the soil we have in our garden and the potting soils we should use for our houseplants. Bob Livey will teach us everything we need to know about Pennsylvania-grown apples. And I'm going to give you some guaranteed cabin fever remedies for your kids later in the program. Have a pencil and a piece of paper handy to jot down our address. So, let's get started and join Rob and Eric in the potting shed.
Now, Eric, I can pretty much go out my yard, dig up some dirt, and do some house planting pot things, right?
That's exactly what we're trying to get you not to do, as a matter of fact.
Why not?
Probably because the biggest difference between potting soil or garden soil that you're thinking of, and a potting media is that they have different physical properties that make them function differently in a container.
Okay, I'm basically thinking about dirt. And in my yard, it's mostly clay, I think.
Right, and that's okay in the ground because soil that's surrounded by other soil in the ground functions okay in that fashion. But when you put something into a container, it takes on completely different properties.
So I really do need to go to the store and buy that thing that's called potting soil? Or?
Potting media.
Okay, there's a lot of different ones to pick from, right? I mean, it's not just, like there's potting soil, and then I see the vermiculite, and
right.
What are we talking about here?
Basically, we're talking about staying away from potting soil or soil in general, okay? And when you get away from that, you get into potting media, and potting media, for the most part, is something that has no soil in it at all.
Now, when we say soil, if I may, what's soil compared to, what's in this that's not in this?
Okay, soil is basically rocks that have weathered over millions of years.
Okay.
So it's minerals, it's little teeny tiny rocks. Potting media, on the other hand, is organic matter like peat moss, okay, or pine bark or hardwood bark. We have examples of some of these laid out here.
Okay.
Okay.
So, yeah, let's show me some of them. What do we have?
Okay. We started with soil.
Okay.
The first two that we have after that are potting medias that are pre-mixed from the factory, okay, and basically contain peat moss and vermiculite or perlite, that kind of thing.
Now, let me stop you because vermiculite and perlite are one of those things that I never knew what they are. I mean, it's the little white specks in here,
right?
That we're
you
talking about.
You want to move right down to those?
Yeah, let's jump there for a second, if Sandy doesn't mind. Can we jump down there and just tell me what that is, and then we'll...
Okay. These elements, everything from here over, I've separated into the organic matter, and from here over is inorganic matter.
Okay.
Perlite, right here, this white crumbly material, it's real light, and vermiculite are both minerals that are mined from the earth, then they're heated to real high temperatures, about 2,000 degrees, and they pop like popcorn. Okay, so basically what they do is add pore space to your media so that your media is not too heavy and you can have air in your media.
Okay, because both these look like little pebbles, but they're really, they crumble real easy, they're very light, they feel like nothing.
Matter of fact, it is about the weight of popcorn.
Yeah, that's what it feels like, and this is even thinner and it's kind of squishy. It's like cardboard almost.
Right. The main difference between these two is that when this one pops, it's kind of like almost a solid air-filled kernel, whereas vermiculite, when it pops, it starts out as kind of a mica. It's layered, and when it pops, it's almost like corrugated cardboard. And now all the spaces that you have in between those layers can hold either water or air.
Okay. And some of this is in this. Is what you're saying. And this is where we want to start then?
Right.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, this is a commercial potting media that's a mix of peat moss and one or two or both of these elements.
Okay.
Okay. If I know we talked earlier about using different medias for different operations,
Right.
okay, and you really don't have to worry about that too much if you're just potting plants. The only distinction I would make is if you're going to grow your own seeds, your own seedlings, okay, then start out with a real fine mix like this, and the particle size is so much smaller that the seeds are able to make good contact with the particles.
Okay, so if I'm going to buy this, then I buy this. This is called
Potting media.
potting media, and then this is called
Potting media.
But
okay, it might
on
say
the bag. There must be something on the bag.
It might tell you on the bag that it's a seed starting mix.
Okay.
Okay.
So to
So-
note that it's finer.
Right.
Okay.
These three elements are all organic matter that could be a component of a potting media that you would either buy or you mix yourself. Straight peat moss, okay, which is mined from moss bogs in Canada. Okay, it takes thousands of years to form from little moss plants as they decompose.
Okay.
Pine bark, okay, which is going to be more common in containers that you might grow nursery stock in. Okay.
Okay.
And hardwood bark chips that once again are going to be found in bigger containers that you would put nursery stock in.
Let me take you back through then. Give me an example of an actual plant, like for this. What would I use? What would I put this in?
And any type of house plant.
Any kind of house plant?
Right.
Doesn't matter. Same with these then.
Right. Right.
Okay. And this is more seedling, and this is called again.
A seeding mix.
Right.
Maybe.
And this is then
This is peat
peat
moss.
moss.
Okay, or more correctly, moss peat.
moss peat. Okay. And this is.
Pine bark mulch.
And what would I put in this then? Something a little bigger, heavier.
You might mix this with peat moss, okay, and perlite. You might mix this with peat moss and vermiculite, okay, depending on what you want to do. For instance, let's move back down to these.
Okay.
We said before that you're going to mix these with peat moss, let's say, and maybe you're going to mix some 1 part peat moss and 1 part perlite.
Okay.
And you decide that after you've grown a plant in that for a while that it doesn't hold enough moisture. You have to water it every day, and you only want to water it every 3 or 4 days. Then next time you go to mix your own media, maybe use 2 parts peat moss and 1 part perlite because the peat moss is going to hold more moisture. Or maybe you get rid of the perlite altogether and mix the peat moss with vermiculite, which we know holds more moisture. Okay, so you adjust the mix yourself.
Accordingly.
To how
And I just want to put my finger in. You have 2 little samples here of how it picks up the water. So to decide if I've mixed it right, what do?
You're going to see how long it takes you between waterings in that pot and how quickly it drains.
Now most of my plants I kill because I probably am overwatering them. I stick
That's-
my finger in and I think, oh, I should add some water.
Right, it's a good possibility. The interesting and amazing thing about peat moss, okay, and soilless media is that they have the ability to hold a lot of moisture like a sponge, and at the same time they have pore spaces that remain filled with air. So no matter how much you saturate this, as long as the pot has drainage holes in it, you're going to drain out the excess moisture, and this is going to be left with the perfect balance of organic matter, water, and air for the roots to thrive.
Okay. You got a couple other things here. We've got about a minute left.
Okay.
What do you have down here?
The last 2 things, because I said that peat moss is mined from moss bogs in Canada, and it's a resource that takes millions of years to renew,
Okay.
we're looking for alternatives to it. Okay. Some of those are things like rock wool and mineral wool, which are byproducts of the steel industry. Okay, and as you pick this
Which
up,
really do feel like wool.
right, it's like a lightweight, almost feels like fiberglass or a real fine steel wool. The interesting thing about it is that it has some of the same water holding and air pore spaces that peat moss has, so we can substitute this for peat moss. Okay, the difference is this is inorganic, okay, and peat moss is organic.
And is this available now, or is that still experimental?
No, this is being experimented with at Penn State right now in the horticulture department, and you will see a little bit of this in commercial plants that you buy from a greenhouse occasionally. And if you do, don't worry, it's completely inert when the plant dies. If the plant
Not just lint
dies,
for my dryer or anything.
no, and
All right.
you can throw it in your compost pile or in your garden when it's done, and it's not going to affect it.
Okay. Well, thanks a lot.
You
Thank
bet.